Okay, so this is a DXWG with a tab panel. This is a brand new one out of the box, so obviously hasn't been ridden in and the leather hasn't stretched, so we're going to have to use a bit of imagination. But what basically happens is when you get the leather stretching, as you can see here, if we look at the amount of gullet that we've actually got visible, or if you like, the amount of plastic that we have visible here, you'll see that it's quite minimal. It's less than my index finger's width. Okay, so when we get our leather stretching, that obviously gives us more room in the middle of the panel here. So if I take the bag out, and if you have got an older panel, older being a bag that is not in a Cordura bag, you'll see that what it's done here, it's uncurled, and I'll show you what it should be like. So you can see here, this airbag is flat. Now, how it should be sitting is like so. That's what this piece of foam is for. It's there, so it basically rolls about a third up this width of foam here. So it's like so. Now, on the newer style, we put it into a Cordura bag that effectively prevents it from uncurling. So it doesn't matter what happens to the leather inside, on your panel, inside this stays the same shape. So the correct way to put this back in, let's pull all this tube through. We create the rollover like so that we want. We're now going to place it inside the panel, and we're going to place it, I'm going to pinch this part here where the screw comes through. There's basically about an inch that shouldn't be filled with airbag. So if I pinch that, that effectively makes the back of that panel smaller. And you can see now, when I sat that in there, can you see how it's rolled over? I'm just going to make sure, I'm going to now, if I take this back out, so that panel is sitting there like that, and it's sticking out a bit at the moment. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it around and just get it tucked in. So this profile here follows the outside of the outside profile of the leather. So I'm going to take this, just pull that back, put it in, make sure it's turned right up into there. So I've now got my profile in my bag, and you can see it's lying there. I want to make sure I take the front bag and I put it over the back bag, and you can see here there's a mistake. I've got a bit of tubing. I don't want that to be underneath. I want it to all be on top, so make sure your tubes are correct. I'm going to replace that. If I pull this up, and you can see this, get these tubes out of the way, here's the edge of the panel top, and what you've got at the point where these two bags merge together, you can see that that is all level. The bag isn't sticking out, and that's because I've turned that bag around and shoved it into that back corner. So I've got a minimal, I've got no rollover, and you can see the bags lay flat at that point only. And then as they come back, they've got a curl in them. So that's the correct way for the panel to actually, oh sorry, the airbag to sit inside the panel. Just going to sort the tubes out before I seal it up. So I'm going to get my tubes, sort them out. Going to take them, roll them over one another, get them to that point there, then turn them in and place them on top. Right, you can still see I've got the rollover in the back. I'm now going to push that in even harder, and I'm going to pull this up like so. Now I'm going to come to the front. I'm going to make sure I push all the foam in underneath the panel top and the bag out of the way. Push down with my thumb, pull up and shove that right in so that is tight there. So it's nice and neat. Now, I'm not going to worry about the fact that this isn't quite in the correct place at the moment. Push the airbag in, push down with your thumb and pull up. Note, the plastic is towards me. Pull up the panel top so you can get my thumb in and push everything out of the way. Push down, pull up. Again, push in, push down, pull up. So what I'm looking for is that this seam runs nicely, and you can see actually this has almost sorted itself out at this end. I'm just going to get that last little bit there and pull down and smooth it. There you go. So we've got a reasonably straight line running all the way through there. Now look at your gullet width. Practically 2.5 fingers worth of plastic showing. Now that's nice and tight. The test, if you imagine this is on a tree, it's wrapped slightly around like so. You should not be able to get hold of the leather and pinch it and pick it up. In other words, like this. You shouldn't be able to do that. That's why I'm putting a slight bow in this, only a slight bow in the panel, and just testing. I can't grab the leather. That tells you it's tight enough and you've pulled enough gullet leather up. But it's that amount of plastic, and obviously it'd be less with a wide gullet, but with an extra wide gullet, the maximum you can get, that maximum width, you need a good 2 fingers worth. Obviously it depends on the finger size, but that's what you're looking for there.